YES is made possible by Mary Lou Kristovich in memory of her husband, William Kristovich.
I'm Peggy Laborde, and welcome to Steppin Out, spotlighting the New Orleans area's arts and entertainment scene. Seated at our table tonight, John Kemp, art columnist for Louisiana Life magazine. Hey, John.
Hi,
hello.
Peg.
Welcome. Poppy Tooker, host of the radio program Louisiana Eats, airing twice weekly on WWNO radio. Good to see you.
Thanks, Peg.
And he's back, John Lawrence, and he is the director of museum programs for the Historic New Orleans Collection. And so much to talk about. Welcome back.
Thank
Hello.
you,
And Steppin Out theater critic, Alan Smason, and he also does theatercriticism.com, and we'll also be having a performance by Ted Hefko in the Thousandaires a little later. But first up, Poppy.
Well, it's that time again for the New Orleans Food and Wine Experience. It's coming up this coming week, May 23rd through the 27th. And all of that fun and wine consumption begins on Wednesday, May the 23rd. And you can enjoy a fabulous vintner dinner at over 25 special restaurants on Wednesday night. Then, Thursday afternoon, those serious wine lovers vie to get into Vinola. Vinola is the event that features fine, rare wines for connoisseurs. And then, once they have that fun, they can roll right into the Royal Street Stroll, which is always such a fun event on Thursday afternoon. Now, new this year, there's actually an after party from 9 until midnight at the Gold Mine Saloon on Dauphine Street.
Okay.
So after all that strolling, I suspect there'll be a lot of dancing. And then, of course, the big fun on Friday night and Saturday afternoon, the grand tastings. There's just nothing quite like it. If you've never been, what are you waiting for? Again, this year, coming up, Bayou Boogaloo. As a matter of fact, they're boogalooing out on the bayou right now as here we sit. Now, I've got some big news about the Boogaloo because they had announced that they were going to start charging this year.
Yes.
And they changed their minds.
Really?
At the last minute.
Okay.
It was going to be free until 3, they kept saying. Well, now it's free. So I'd say if you like the Boogaloo, hit the Boogaloo. Next year, I think you're going to be paying. And the food at the Boogaloo is out of this world. There's some vendors there who you will see at Jazz Fest, like the Praline Connection, and Loretta's Pralines will be out there with her winning crab beignet she's been serving at the festival, and other places. Oh, Boucherie, Brats, y'all. If you don't get down to the Bywater, go see Brats, y'all. Boswell's Jamaican Grill, Clessie's, Food Drunk, Frytastic.
Food drunk.
Food drunk, yes. You know those food truck people, they just get carried away. That's the name of one of the vendors. And also Frytastic. That would be F-R-Y-tastic. I bet you know what they're serving. Mid-City Pizza's there. Mona's out there. Quentin's Ice Cream, really
Yum.
good. They're serving out there. And so really go and graze because there are a lot of small vendors that unless you are a frequenter of the late night bar scene and you catch those food trucks, you might never see these wild things they're serving. And I also want to remind everybody, if you get boogalooed out, or before or after the Boogaloo, there is live music at Pearl Wine Company. Pearl Wine has just been through this fantastic renovation. There's great outdoor seating. It's a great place to hang out before, during.
And it's right across the street from
right
all
across
the
the
action.
street, and I'd
American
say
Can.
if it gets a little much, head over to Pearl Wine and they'll fix you up
That's
over
a
there.
very special place, by the way.
It is. It's charming. It's
and
so
it's, of
nice.
course, a wine store as well as a wine bar.
It's really a community hub.
Yes.
They're always doing some fabulous things for the community. So anyway, go see my friend Leora at Pearl Wine.
Okay, thank you.
Very good.
And John Lawrence. We have two Johns.
We have two Johns, right.
John Lawrence. Excuse me, not John Kemp, rather.
the
You
other-
have been
okay.
around out and
Yes, I have.
about
Yes,
and
I
to
have.
the Ogden and.
Right. Well, you know, I think everybody in New Orleans knows. I hope everybody in New Orleans knows this is the tricentennial of the city, and some of the major museums are doing shows to celebrate the tricentennial. The Historic New Orleans Collection is doing its founding era. The New Orleans Museum of Art is going to have a big show in October with the art collection of the Duke of Orleans. But the Louisiana State Museum has a major show at the Cabildo. In fact, they dedicated the entire Cabildo to showing the Spanish influence in New Orleans. Starting on the first floor, you work your way up. It's talking about Carlos III, the King of Spain, and the Spanish Enlightenment, how the influences of the Enlightenment in Spain, and how he was a very educated man, and education and science and math. And second part would be the influence of Spain in New Orleans. Now, we hear very little, most people know very little about that. You always talk about the French period, or we're talking about the post Louisiana Purchase. But Spain had a tremendous influence in Louisiana. And the French Quarter we know today, for the most part, is thanks to the Spanish. And so they talk about the show explores through documents, photographs, paintings, the influence of Spain in New Orleans. But the main part of the show, which and most people again don't know about, is the help Spain rendered to the United States during the American Revolution. You know, France was helping the United States on the eastern seaboard through guns and munitions and ships and navies. The Spanish in New Orleans were doing the same thing through the West. Governor Galvez in New Orleans, through an Irish Americans in New Orleans, were shipping guns and munitions and food and supplies to the Americans fighting the British. At the same time, they were invading Florida to get Florida back, because Spain had lost Florida to Britain during the French and Indian War, the 7 Years' War. So they're getting that back. So it was kind of a pincer movement from the Bourbons on the West and in the East, helping the Americans succeed in the Revolution. So it really is an excellent show. They have hundreds of items, documents, artifacts, even a Goya painting that they borrowed from various institutions in Spain, and also from the collection of the Louisiana State Museum, which also has an excellent collection in the Historical Center. So I really highly recommend seeing this show. It's one of the most comprehensive shows I've seen the State Museum do in many, many years, perhaps going back to the Sun King show that they had, I think it was in the 80s. Another show we're talking about, I highly recommend, is at the Ogden Museum of Southern Art on Kemp Street. Again, we're dealing with a history show, but it's not a narrative history. There's a really good artist in New Orleans. His name is Jim Blanchard, and he does these magnificent architectural watercolor archival paintings of historic buildings in South Louisiana. Now, this is a man who has a passion for the historical architecture of Louisiana. And he has a show there now at the Ogden, plus a really wonderful catalog with several hundred of his paintings. But you get to see through these wonderful architectural drawings and watercolors many of the buildings that we still have in New Orleans area, in South Louisiana, and those that are long gone, like the old St. Charles Hotel, the St. Louis Hotel, and so many, the old Jockey Club. Many of these buildings are no longer here. But he's done his magnificent job with these paintings, and I highly recommend seeing it. This is the old state capitol in Baton Rouge.
And you know, we have to just remind everybody, because everyone's so thinking techno these days, this is by hand.
This is by hand.
I feel like we have to remind people, it's by hand.
Well, it was interesting. He did a walkthrough last week, and I went with him through the show, and he was describing how he did it. And people were asking questions. He starts with the line drawings, ink line drawings, then it's the watercolor, then the gouache watercolor, and he builds, and he goes out and measures these buildings, the ones that exist, or he goes to the old archives, and it's like Adrian Persac in the early 19th century, the work that he did.
I'm sure.
And yeah, it just inspired that. But these are all, the detail is there. I mean, the exact measurements of the buildings that now exist and those that did exist through the architectural drawings that he found in all archives and photographs. A big help with the WPA photographs, that series they did, the architectural series they did during the Depression. He used that quite a bit. Tremendous amount of homework.
But I love a guy who does his homework.
He does his homework.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
And New Orleans Magazine quiz queen Julia Street has a question for us. Last time, Max Nathan, hello Max Nathan, gave us the names of two sets of local brothers in which one is a politician and the other is a performer. The answers, Larry and Vernell Bonaris and Jay and Brian Batts. Some people say Bagneris, but Vernell says Bonaris. Okay, now tonight's question. All right. These two downtown hotels underwent a name change from their earlier names, but have since changed back to their previous names. What are they? Email your answers to steppinout@wys.org. Our prize is a year subscription to Louisiana Life magazine. A dish towel with the message, "I love gardening very much," from our friends at wearablevegetables.com. And a pair of free admission passes to either the Audubon Zoo, Aquarium of the Americas, or the Butterfly Garden and Insectarium. You can go to WYS.org for our online calendar to see our lineup of events, including the Battle of the Best Croissant this Sunday at the Southern Food and Beverage Museum. You can also link to our WYS YouTube channel to see our program. Now, John Lawrence, a very exciting exhibit at your place.
Yes, thank you. We are in the final days of an exhibition called New Orleans, the Founding Era. And it, like the exhibition at the Cabildo, is a wide-ranging look at a particular period in New Orleans history, the first decade and a half of New Orleans as a French city. And so through almost 150 objects, nearly half of them coming from our collection, the balance coming from 19 other private and public organizations in
John, amazing.
the Bear-Paw Moccasins from the Quai Branly collections.
How early is that?
This is 18th century, and those moccasins were made really for the export trade. The Native Americans would sell them to the settlers, and who would sometimes keep them for use here, but also send them back as well. So
maybe even at what becomes the French market.
Exactly. But the exhibition covers this period of history through an incredible variety of objects and an assemblage likely not to be put together again anytime soon. And if you want to learn more, we also have published a nice catalog, both in French and English. So if you want to practice your French, you can do that as well. But 8 essays by some of the leading scholars of this period on the various subjects that we address, free and open to the public.
Such a deal.
May 27th. We are closed this coming Monday, but every other day we are open and would love to have people visit.
And we should acknowledge Erin Greenwald, who I know worked on this for years, but many others
Our former
too.
colleague, Erin Greenwald,
Noma,
is the curator for this exhibit, and she did a fabulous job.
It's something. And now on to something coming up.
Yes, in the fall of this year, when we open a new facility at 520 Royal Street, we are
the old Channel 6,
the old WDSU studios. That's what I think most people will remember. It is going to house a very special exhibition called Art of the City, with funding from the Hellas Foundation, subtitle Postmodern to Post-Katrina. Jan Gilbert, an accomplished visual artist and curator who lives here in New Orleans, has selected many dozens of items from dozens of artists who have worked in the city during that time. We've begun really a rollout of this with a soundscape piece called Recitations by Zohari Abdalian and people who are congregating near the corner of Royal and Toulouse, or Royal and St. Louis, every day at 3 o'clock can hear this soundscape. And we also have unveiled just this week a spectacular piece by the UK-based artist Robin Reynolds called New Orleans Between Heaven and Hell. Don't miss it. It's really fun to see.
Well, congratulations on
Thank you.
all exciting things. And now it's time, though, for our musical guest, singer and saxophonist Ted Hefko and his band, the Thousandaires, came to our studio earlier today to discuss their brand new CD and play for us. Ted, the name of your new album and CD is Gas Station Guru. Where does that come from?
Well, we're trying to find the perfect mix of the profound and the profane. And that's what I think of jazz as being. When we think of the biographies of some of our favorite jazz musicians, they have those elements. So what's more just bass than a gas station and then the guru, like someone watching over the gas station.
Influence, perhaps, the religion.
Yeah.
So rock and roll, folk, kind of and jazz, of course, a kind of a combination for you? Or?
Yeah, and I think that's New Orleans too. I think it's the way we mix these elements together to have some country elements. and some jazz elements.
So you arrived here in the 1990s on a Greyhound bus from Madison, Wisconsin.
Sure
and
did.
You're mostly here. You've been back and forth New York and playing around the country,
Yeah.
but mostly here, right?
Mostly here. I've never left the U.S. except for a little bit of Canada. I was in New York for a few years there, especially after Katrina, and I kind of tag up here for a couple weeks a year.
So, but mostly in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
Yay, all right. You're playing all over, but you play a lot on Frenchman Street. It's really changed, hasn't it?
Yeah, when in the 90s, we had a lot of fun, and there's about 4 of those clubs that were open in Cafe Brazil. Some people might remember, and I played there.
And what's
all
the big
time.
difference between then and now?
We make a little more money,
Well,
I'll
that's
tell you
good
what, and
news.
there's more people from out of town, because then it was just university students, international people, locals, and now the word has gotten out via the internet.
Now you've got Mem Shannon playing, one of the cuts here, and a lot of the songs are yours, including the one you're going to be playing, huh?
Yeah, we're doing Tell Me the Truth. I wrote 6 for this album, and I hadn't done a cover on an album in a long time. I picked out a couple of my favorite covers to add.
I like that you have the City of New Orleans. When that's a wonderful old song, too.
Yeah,
huh?
yeah.
Well, let us have you introduce the band members, and I understand they're from California, Chattanooga, and New Orleans.
Here we go. Mr. Joe Welnick from Carlsbad, California. From Chattanooga, Tennessee, Matt Galloway. From right here in New Orleans, from New Orleans East, Jazz Butler. And on the bass, also from New Orleans, Justin Carlo Davi.
All right, take it away, Ted.
Tell me the truth, how you really rooting for me, dear. Tell me the truth, tell me the truth. Tell me the truth, are you really in my corner, dear? Tell me the truth, tell me the truth. Tell me the truth. Do you see what you were hoping you see? Come on, tell me for truth. Could I be what you were hoping I'd be? Tell me the truth. Tell me, tell me, tell me. Come on, tell me for truth. Tell me for truth. Tell me the truth and keep your hands where I can see them. Tell me the truth. Tell me the truth. Tell me the truth and treat me like a human being. Tell me the truth. Tell me the truth. Shine a light upon it, bright so I can see it. Put it in your pocket, baby, keep it safe for me. Just to tell me what I did. Tell me what I did. Don't you keep your feelings here. Don't you keep your feelings here. Tell me, tell me, tell me. Come on, tell me for truth. Tell me for truth. Give me a strong mind that I can't think, and a cool glass of water when I need a drink. A shot of knowledge, oh, wash away my fears, and a sweet little angel that will whisper in my ear. You got tell me for truth. Oh, tell me for truth. A strong mind that I can't think, and a cool glass of water when I need a drink. A shot of knowledge, oh, to wash away my fears, and a sweet little angel that will whisper in my ear. Come on, tell me for truth. Come on, come on, come on, tell me for truth. Tell me, tell me, tell me, come on and tell me the truth. Tell me the truth.
playing at Peaches Records on Magazine Street tomorrow. They're also playing Sunday afternoon at 5 p.m. at 30 degrees, 90 degrees on Frenchman Street. Visit his website, ted.hefko.com. It's really a well put together website, by the way, and you can see his upcoming gigs. Now, Alan.
Well, I want to remind everybody, I'm also in another lifetime, I was the editor of the Crescent City Jewish News. We have a new edition that's coming out, and you can pick up copies all over town. Mardi Gras
And you
Zone.
still are.
Yes, and it just came out, but yeah, but I would like to mention Lakeview Brew is going to have it here at WYS too. So stop on by and say hello. Now, last week was the start of what I would like to, in theatrical terms, refer to as Holy Week. It all started with a divine comedy starring New Orleans' own Brian Batt at Le Petit Theater, and that, of course, was An Act of God. The premise of the comedy is that God, in the body of the well-known TV and film star Brian Batt, has returned to Earth to convey his displeasure upon the audience and basically to give them an updated version of the Ten Commandments. With his brash but cultured persona, of the Southern gentleman, he has a rather holy swagger about him. Brian is perfectly cast with his Southern charm that is really steeped in this sinful city of his birth. Now, accompanied by two angels, Gabriel and Michael, who look suspiciously like actors Wendy Malakovich and Leon Condovespri, he details his displeasure with the modern world. Many of these commandments, of course, express God's displeasure with the conventions and norms of modern society and its fascination with self-importance and celebrity lifestyles. Indeed, God is not dead, but he is pretty angry. He'll take issue with the way that the modern society has evolved, and God is still a jealous God, and he'll have us put no other gods before him, but he's still quite unhappy with those who commit misdeeds in his name. He's not interested in having a personal connection with any of you, by the way, and he explains why to hilarious effect. Well directed by Maxwell Williams and written by the Emmy Award winner David Javerbaum. It's a seriously funny comedy with impressive projections by James Lanius, excellent sound design by Fitzpatrick, nice lighting by George Johnson, and also Julie Wynn. A shout out to her for the costumes. Thou shalt not miss the show. It runs until May the 27th. Meanwhile, the singing and dancing nuns of the Little Sisters of Hoboken are back in New Orleans, and they're raising a holy ruckus at BB's Stage Door Canteen on weekends to raise funds to bury the last of the 5 sisters, of course, that were among those that were killed summarily by their cook. Unfortunately, it was an accident, of course, and that's between now and July. This, of course, is Nunsense, the show that logged more than 3,500 performances off-Broadway, making it the second longest running off-Broadway show in history behind The Fantastics. Now, director Victoria Reed has assembled a really top-notch cast, including Meredith Long, who plays Sister Mary Regina, who, of course, is the Reverend Mother, and she returns back to the New Orleans stage after being a real mother of twins after several years. Stage Door Idol winner April Louise as Sister Mary Hubert, Victory Bell, Skyland Roussel as Sister Robert Ann, are other parts of the cast there. Also, Stephanie Boyd, who returns to a local stage. She's actually been outside of New Orleans, but returning back to Covington roots here as Sister Mary Leo, and Christian Tarzetti absolutely steals the show with a fabulous performance as Sister Mary Amnesia. As the lead-off song really tells you, Nunsense is habit-forming, and its 2-act, 2-hour-plus show is really entertaining. Great music by funny man Dan Goggin. He does the lyrics as well. Choreography by Heidi Molnar, very nice, and ballet choreography by Kenneth Beck. Yes, there is ballet in the show too. Nunsense is silly. Some of the joke references don't work quite as well as they did when the show was new back in 1986, but it's still a very fun outing, an evening or afternoon of entertainment as these nuns try to raise the funds to bury those last 5 unfortunate sisters. And even I was communed to take part with the sisters here, the Little Sisters of Hoboken. I recommend this to everybody who wants to have a little humor in religion. There's a lot here to enjoy, and again, you can enjoy that brunch or dinner as well. Nunsense through July the 1st. Meanwhile, Southern Rep took off the wraps of the previews for All the Way this week, and again, it shows, I believe, opening up officially on Monday. So I'm going to say that what I saw was just a preview, but if it was just a preview, it was fabulous, okay? A.M.A. Hayes directed this impressive work with an all-star performance by none other than Jason Kirkpatrick as LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson. He is a man who actually worshiped politics, if you will. So there's that part of the Holy Week I was talking about. From the beginning of the play, in which he is an accidental president following the assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy, to the time that he's actually selected as the Democratic nominee nominee of the party 11 months later. This is an historically accurate and mesmerizing show. Also turning in a riveting performance as Martin Luther King is none other than Dominique McClellan. He sounds and looks so much like King, it is uncanny. It's a huge cast, though. 30 performers with noted actors like Mike Harkins, James Wright, John Bostic, Garrett Prejean. They all play a variety of historical characters like Rowan Ruther, J. Edgar Hoover, and Hubert Humphrey. But it is Jason Kirkpatrick who really has the show on his shoulders. He's nothing short of magnificent. He has that down-home Southern persona that you really love in a politician. Again, there are some wonderful performances by lady actors, if you will. The Nancy White as Lady Bird, Catherine Graham, and Carol Sloan. Bookheim-Binder as Muriel Humphrey. But the males really dominate this cast. That's all the way through June the 3rd.
All right, very good. Once again, kudos to Brian Batt for Act of God, but that show does have its dark moments.
Yes.
It's a little bit, it's not totally ha-ha all the time. So just to be mindful of that. Some people might not expect that there are some things get a little theologically
Anytime you're dealing with the Supreme Almighty,
yes.
it is going to be a little bit more of a heavy subject.
It gets complicated. Anyway, now time for Picks of the Week. John Kemp.
Well, in the past, we've talked about Mitchell Godet and his studio Inferno down in Araby. Now he and his wife Erica Larkin Godet have opened a new gallery, Studio Waveland, half a block off the beach. It's a magnificent space. She has a metal studio there, and also they're going to have artist workshops too.
That's big news.
It's a great space.
Oh, great.
Very great space.
Poppy.
I really hope everybody will join me tomorrow at the Bugs and Brew for Drew Crawfish Cook-Off and Beer Festival. All the proceeds will benefit our dear Carl Schubert from DTB. So please join me. It's for a good cause, and the crawfish are going to be delicious.
Yes. Hoping lots of people come out. John Lawrence.
At the Historic New Orleans Collection, we have 6 different events in June. I wanted to call your attention to that on June 9th, our culinary symposium, Pulp Facts, Celebrating Citrus. All the details at hnoc.org.
Great. Alan.
Well, Bernstein at 100. This is going to be the kickoff for the summer lyric season. It's on June the 2nd and the 3rd, 8 p.m. and again 2 p.m. For the matinee on Sunday at Dixon Hall. I recommend it very highly. They're going to have some wonderful performances there.
Okay, great. And my picks, New Orleans vocalist Heidi Melanson will be doing a special tribute concert featuring the songs of Dusty Springfield this Sunday and next Sunday at the Columns Hotel with her husband Phil. Of course, that's on St. Charles Avenue. You can make a reservation by calling 202-0986 or just show up at the door. That works. And the 19th Annual Senior Resource Festival is next Thursday. This year's theme for the festival will be 1950s Drive-In Diner at the Castine Center in Mandeville. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you all so much. Good night.